Welcome back to Jungle Gap. Season 15 has arrived. Want to quickly talk about the things important to jungle. So this isn't going to be a very in-depth patch rundown. There's not that much in this, honestly, but we're just going to be talking about the things that affects jungle. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So cool new map. I actually played one game, was pretty cool. This new boss fight spawns at 20 minutes. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. It's going to replace Baron. Doesn't really affect junglers. Obviously, it just affects the entire game, so we're going to have to see how that plays out. But the first thing I really want to talk about is this right here, Feats of Strength. So essentially what this is First Blood, First Turret can get your boots upgraded to a triumphant version. And then also slaying 3 epic monsters, which is, you know, Dragon, Rifthold, Baron, the new monster. Will upgrade to tier 3, I believe. Obviously, this is good for early game junglers, right? So, you know, as you'll see in this patch, this is kind of the only early game thing. I don't really think it's like, okay, play early game junglers, but it's kind of nice, right? It's kind of nice for some early game junglers. You know, you get First Blood, you snowball, you get a tower, and that gives you a little bit of, you know, snowballing effect. Next thing we're going to be looking at is Teleport. Now, Teleport can now be used on minions and wards. So this is the other early game thing that will affect junglers. There's just going to be more early game skirmishing and fighting. Champions like Galio, TP on a minion. You know, there's a bot lane skirmish happening at 3, 4, 5 minutes. Mid laners will now be able to get involved. You know, invades, you put a ward down, they can TP. So, yeah, just more early game fighting. And now, the most important thing for jungle, lane minions. So, lane minions are now going to kill each other. So they're stronger at killing each other. They have less health and they do more damage. The cannon minion is now going to spawn on the 4th wave, which is actually pretty big because typically when you play champions such as Elise, you do 3 camps and then you're kind of on time for the 3rd wave to dive, right? And so combining these two things together, minions are strong at killing each other, and canyon minions spawning on the 4th wave. It means that this is a really big hit to early game junglers who like to dive. I'll use Elise as a primary example of this. Obviously, there are others. You know, Rek'Sai. This is really going to hurt them. It's going to make the game kind of slow down. It's going to make laners more safe, right? As we get on to the other thing as well, which is turrets. So basically, dives will just become much harder because minion waves won't stack up anymore like they used to. There is still going to be a chance that you can dive on the 4th wave, right? But it's going to be interesting to see how this minions stronger at killing each other really affects that. I don't think waves are going to be able to stack up as hard. The wave also spawning on the 4th wave, which will mean that it's kind of on time for full clear junglers. So full clear jungle and then see if you can dive, right? This is how it's going to affect. So another win for full clear junglers. And that's kind of what this patch is looking like as we'll get to the tier list after. And the final thing in this quick patch rundown is turrets. Turrets now are stronger and they amp, right? So yeah, turrets damage and amping is stronger. It also has a higher heat duration or amp duration, which means rediving is harder. So you can't now dive, chunk them a little bit, then redive. You know, 3 seconds later, it's now 5 seconds, right? So it's just going to destroy. It's just going to absolutely destroy you. The fortification is reduced, which means that, again, laning and people playing in lane and playing for plates is a thing. Another kind of, you know, full clear jungle, play for a dive, help your lane push in, they play for a couple of plates. Seems to be the pattern of where the game is going and how to play to the strongest. Now, moving on to my Season 15 jungle tier list. We're going to be talking about different categories of champions. I've kind of categorized them all into different sections. Obviously, this tier list is not going to be aimed at high elo or low elo. I will just specify, depending on the champion, if it belongs higher or lower, depending on what elo you're playing at. So let's get right into it. My top 3 picks in S tier, in each of its kind of categories: the best tank jungle, the best AD jungle, and the best AP jungle. Viego across the board. He's kind of just, you know, the perfect jungler, so to speak. He doesn't do anything particularly insane, right? He doesn't have the most insane clear speed. He doesn't have the most insane gank. Doesn't have the most insane early game. Doesn't have the most insane late game. But he does do all of those things at a very high level, which is very rare, right? For any of these junglers, you'll never see a jungler tick so many boxes and do them at a really good level. So Viego's been S tier a couple patches now. Still going to be S tier. Heart still got nerfed actually, but I think it's that Skarner is still the best tank jungle. I'm still going to put him in S tier. This champion is obviously a lot better in high elo. I wouldn't really recommend Skarner for low elo. He still is strong, right? In low elo, 100%. But probably just drops to A tier if you're below Emerald. Same thing with Karthus. Stronger in high elo. S tier, definitely above Emerald. Probably drops to A tier, below Emerald. Karthus is a champion that kind of needs the right draft. So he needs 80 champions, 80 mid, 80 top preferably. And he also needs some kind of front line. So hopefully you have a melee support. Because you need someone to kind of play behind. Obviously, in this tier list, you'll see a lot of full clearing junglers. That's going to be kind of the direction the game seems to be going in. Those are the champions that are going to be strongest. So now we move on to S tier 1 tricks. These are going to be champions that kind of require a certain level of proficiency. This is why I have them as S tier 1 tricks. I wouldn't recommend these champions if you're below Emerald. And obviously, if you're just really, really good at these champions, the sky is the limit. You can go with these champions to challengers. So you have all your standard champions here, to be honest. There's a couple missing which are going into the B tier. But yeah, super strong champions will forever be super strong champions unless they just get nerfed like crazy. Moving on now to A tier. So we have a category of tank junglers here. These are my A tier tank junglers, full clearing junglers, super strong tanks, provide a lot to a team in terms of their utility. These 4 or 5, is it? Yeah, 5 AP junglers, full clearing AP junglers. These are the AP A tier full clearing junglers. Slots into different team comps. So with Diana, you'd be looking to pair it. For example, Diana Yasuo. With Udi, you're looking to play more of like a frontline AP champion. With Zyra, you're more so looking to have some frontline, have some objective control. With Talia, you're looking to counterpick dashing champions and also pair her with CC set up for your W. And with Lilia, you do want frontline, but she kind of flexes. She can kind of fit into most team comps as well. Moving on now to our AD full clearing junglers. It was kind of, I didn't really know if I should put Wukong in S tier. I decided to put him in A tier. He's definitely probably S tier in above Emerald. And probably below Emerald, I think he's A tier or below A tier, maybe A minus. This is just because I think Wukong actually does take quite a bit of skill, quite a bit of proficiency to play well. And Hecarim and Nocturne, just really, really strong AD full clearing junglers. The only now last category of junglers, which is Warwick, a ganking jungler. He's still going to be an A tier. I think below Emerald, he drops to B tier. Above Emerald, he could be A plus. Still extremely strong. The win rates are still going to be extremely high, I suspect. Now, dropping down to B tier now. Now, these are just basically champions, same categories, just weaker. So all these champions, I believe, are just, all these AD champions are just weaker than the ones above. You'll see a lot of ganking junglers here. So ganking jungler, ganking jungler, ganking jungler, ganking jungler, ganking jungler. Some champions like Jarvan, all these kind of ganking junglers actually above Emerald could be A minus, depending on where it slots into the team comp. So for example, Vi is really, really good against mobility champions. So if you're above Emerald, obviously you're still going to be able to pick Vi into the Zeri, into the Kai'Sa, into Corki mids, whatever it is, whoever has mobility, Vi will still be very strong. Above Emerald, I would not recommend any of these champions, honestly. Any of these AD champions if you are below Emerald. Maybe Volibear. I think Volibear could be okay, but I wouldn't recommend. Briar, actually, as well, I would recommend below Emerald. I would recommend Briar just because she's kind of like Warwick, very, very simple, very, very straightforward. So below Emerald, yes. Now moving on to our AP full clearing junglers. We have 3 of them in the B tier. Shyvana, below Emerald, I think bumps up to A tier. Above Emerald is somewhere between B, maybe even lower. Just doesn't really, even though she's a full clearing jungler, in higher elo, she's just going to get punished. You need to play her really, really well. Yeah, around B tier, above Emerald, A tier, below Emerald. Fiddlesticks, below Emerald, I think is actually super strong. Full clearing champion. Could be A tier, below Emerald. In high elo, people tend to play around it better. People tend to mark him, find him, stop him from getting that insane engage. Still could work in high elo. Honestly, this is kind of a sleeper pick just because people don't really know how to play around him and verse him. And Brand, just another full clearing jungler that isn't as strong as these guys. Just been nerfed too much, pretty much. Now we're going to ganking AP junglers. Again, Emerald, Elise could bump up higher. We'll have to wait and see how all these changes affect these kind of ganking junglers. We'll see how the towers and the minion waves affect Elise and if she can still pull off those dives. Of course, Elise can still full clear. Her clear actually isn't that bad. Above Emerald, she is A. Below Emerald, she is B or even C. Gragas kind of just is one of those champions that is, I think, only a pairing champion with a champion like Yasuo. Of course, you can play him if you're below Emerald. Above Emerald, I don't see really a reason why to choose him over Elise or over, you know, other AP junglers. He is more of a ganking jungler. So if you're looking for an AP jungler that ganks, that isn't as good as Elise, sure. Nunu is also an interesting one. It's probably still going to be really strong, even though he's a ganking jungler below Emerald. I would still highly recommend him below Emerald. And the reason why I'm saying these ganking junglers, these AP like champions like Nunu, that work in lower elo rather than high elo, is just because in high elo, a Nunu ganking, or just a Nunu in general, it's very kind of, it's too straightforward, right? So him snowballing in high elo, people are going to play around that better, and you're gonna have a hard time just finding those free snowballs like you would in lower elo. Ivan, Shen, Rammus, this category is kind of like the support junglers. I think Rammus does go up to A tier or even S tier depending on the comp he versus. So if he's versing like 3 or 4 80 carries, he instantly goes to S tier. Hard to place him somewhere because he is very, very draft dependent. I would say highly recommend Rammus below Emerald. If you're above Emerald, you need to be careful about team comp. Now we move on to, Shen and Ivan, 2 support champions. Not really great clears. So, you know, honestly, I'm not really sure about these 2 champions yet. I'm going to be honest. You know, I have some people in my Discord theory crafting about Shen, which I have a look at from now and then. But I just think support junglers is not really where the meta is going. But we'll have to wait and see. Now, moving on to the B tier one tricks. I'm not going to talk too extensively about these. These are just champions that, okay, I like playing them. Sorry, I don't know why Sejuani is here. She's not a one-tricking champion. But these are basically just champions saying, I really like playing this champion. But they're just not so great in the meta right now, right? They're just not very... You know, if you're really insane at Rengar, of course you can pull him off. If you're really insane at Sylas, I don't think it's going to work, actually. I think... Oh, it could. In high elo, it definitely could. It's just not as good as these champs. So yeah, these are just all one-tricking champions. Wouldn't really recommend them. They're very high skill ceiling. They require a lot of champion mastery to pull off some of these combos like Kiana and Zed, and to know about, you know, Rumble's clear. Just wouldn't really recommend them unless you know the champion inside and out. And then we get to C tier champions. These are just champions that obviously are just a lot weaker. They don't really have a strength anywhere. The strength of, for example, Jax and Sedge, you could say that these champions, you know, Sejuani is a strong tank paired with other melee champions. So I think these 2 guys are draft dependent. A lot of these guys are honestly draft dependent. Poppy is playable in high elo, into dashing champions, in competitive. So these are like kind of competitive champions, honestly. These champions are just weak. Pantheon, I have seen him being played a few times. Honestly, I'm not too sure about him. He could probably be like B tier below Emerald. Morgana, another counter pick. So yeah, just a bunch of counter picks here. really, really draft dependent. Another counter pick here, Trundle. Mordekaiser I could see below Emerald as being good. Actually like B tier, honestly. Olaf is a champion that just requires resources. So in jungle, unless he used, when he was played actually, when he used to clear really fast, not saying he clears slow right now, but that was kind of his biggest strength, that he cleared really fast. He was able to stat check people. It's just not the case anymore. And so that's going to wrap up this tier list. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. And good luck on your climb in Season 15.